She walked into the cafe with a trembling heart, hoping this meeting might finally change her life. But the moment she sat down across from him, something felt terribly wrong. His eyes showed kindness, yet the room around them felt heavy, as if someone was watching, waiting for her to break. What happened next would shock everyone. Before we dive in, tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching? The cafe smelled of roasted coffee and rain-soaked air when Maya walked in, clutching her small purse as if it carried her courage. She wasn't used to dates, especially blind ones, but after years of working double shifts and raising her little boy alone, she had finally said yes. Her coworkers had insisted that she deserved a night out, a little bit of happiness. What she didn't know was that this night had nothing to do with kindness. At the corner table near the window, the women giggled behind their cups, whispering, Tina and Lauren. They watched her with a spark of mischief that could only come from cruelty disguised as fun. They had spent days planning this, the perfect prank. A blind date between a lonely single mother and the man everyone in the office made jokes about. Evan Brooks, the nice guy who smiled too much, laughed too easily, and carried more weight than the world thought acceptable. They had told Maya that someone had been admiring her for months, too shy to speak directly. They had told Evan that a beautiful woman had seen something special in him. Both stories were lies. Their goal was simple, to record the moment when Maya's face fell, when Evan's hope shattered, and then upload it to a private group chat. Just for laughs, they said. Maya sat down, trying to calm her racing heart. Her hands trembled slightly as she fixed her hair, checking her reflection in the cafe window. Her eyes looked tired, but there was still a trace of hope there, hope that maybe someone had finally seen her. Beyond her struggle, the sound of a chair scraping behind her made her turn. Evan had arrived. He was taller than she expected, with a soft frame and kind eyes that seemed to hold a quiet understanding of pain. His shirt was neatly pressed, though it pulled a little at the shoulders, and his tie didn't quite match. Still, he smiled, a nervous, genuine smile that reached his eyes. For a moment, Maya's nerves softened, until she saw the flicker of a phone camera from the corner, Tina's phone, recording. The realization hit like cold water. This wasn't a date. It was a setup, a cruel joke. Her throat tightened, and shame burned her cheeks. Every instinct screamed at her to leave, to run before the laughter began. But before she could stand, Evan's voice stopped her. Gentle, calm, without bitterness. Let's not give them the ending they're hoping for, he said softly. Maya blinked, startled. He had seen it too. He knew. He sat down across from her, unbothered by the stares, and gestured to the menu. How about we make it look like we're having the best date in town, he said with a small grin. You order first. Something in his tone, steady, kind, quietly confident, made her sit back down. The tension in her chest eased just a little. The laughter from the corner faded into a distant hum. As they began to talk, Maya realized Evan wasn't pretending. He asked about her son, her work, her favorite books. He listened, truly listened, as if every word mattered. There was no pity in his eyes, no judgment, only warmth. The more they talked, the lighter the air felt. Maya found herself laughing, a sound she hadn't heard from her own lips in months. For a while, she forgot about the cameras, the whispers, the people waiting for her to be humiliated. Across the cafe, Tina frowned. This wasn't the reaction she wanted. Why isn't she leaving? She muttered. Lauren shrugged, uneasy now. There was something unsettling about seeing kindness win where cruelty was meant to. Evan noticed them watching and leaned forward slightly. His voice dropped, almost a whisper. You know, he said, people laugh at others because they're afraid someone might see through their own masks. Maybe that's what's happening here. Maya followed his gaze. Tina and Lauren looked suddenly smaller, like their laughter had lost its meaning. When their food arrived, Evan insisted she try the cheesecake. It's the best in town, he said, slicing it carefully. She laughed when he handed her the fork, realizing her hands had stopped trembling. For the first time that evening, she looked at him not the way others did, but the way someone looks when they see kindness and strength stitched together. He had been mocked, judged, underestimated, and yet he chose grace over bitterness. By the time they stood to leave, the storm outside had stopped. The cafe lights glowed softly through the window. As they stepped out, Evan held the door for her, and she smiled, a real, unguarded smile. In that moment, somewhere deep inside, something began to heal. And in the corner, the two women who started it all sat frozen, watching the scene unfold. Not the joke they expected, but something far more powerful. What began as their cruel setup was turning into a lesson they would never forget. The next morning, sunlight spilled through Maya's kitchen window, catching the steam from her coffee. The world felt slightly different, lighter somehow. Her son, Noah, was at the table, building a tower of cereal boxes while humming softly. Maya smiled faintly as she packed his school lunch, but her thoughts kept drifting back to the night before. The cafe, the whispers, and the man who had turned humiliation into grace. She hadn't expected to see him again. It was supposed to be just one strange evening, one act of quiet defiance against cruelty. But something in Evan's words had lingered like an echo. Asterisk, let's not give them the ending they're hoping for. Asterisk, it wasn't just clever, it was strength wrapped in kindness. She hadn't realized how much she needed to see that kind of strength. By noon, a message appeared on her phone. Asterisk, Evan. Asterisk, I hope I didn't make last night harder for you. You handled it better than most people would have. She stared at the screen for a long moment before replying. Asterisk, Maya. Asterisk, you made it easier. Thank you. A minute later came his response. Asterisk, Evan. Asterisk, then maybe coffee again? No cameras this time. Just the people who survived a bad joke. Her lips curved into a smile she didn't expect. She typed, asterisk, I like that. Asterisk. They met again 2 days later, same cafe, but this time, no giggling coworkers in the corner. Just rain tapping against the windows and the soft sound of jazz humming through the speakers. Evan was already there, reading something on his tablet, a cup of black coffee beside him. He looked up when she arrived, his smile calm and genuine. You came, he said. Of course I did, Maya replied, sliding into the seat across from him. I owed you a proper conversation, he chuckled. Then I guess I'll try to make it worth your time. There was no awkwardness between them, only an ease that comes when the people recognize pain in each other's eyes. As they spoke, she found herself telling him things she rarely said out loud. About Noah's father leaving when their son was just 2. About how people treated her differently when they found out she was raising a child alone. About how loneliness had become a quiet companion she never asked for. Evan didn't interrupt. He didn't offer hollow sympathy. He just listened, nodding occasionally, his eyes steady and kind. When she finished, he said softly, you must be stronger than you think. She laughed quietly. Strong? I feel like I'm just surviving. Surviving is strength, he said. You keep moving forward, even when people expect you to break. That's power they'll never understand. For a long moment, they sat in silence. Then Evan spoke again, this time more hesitant. Can I tell you something? Last night wasn't the first time people tried to make a joke out of me. Maya frowned slightly. What do you mean? He leaned back, his eyes drifting toward the window. High school, college, even at work now. People see my size before they see me. I've heard the whispers, the laughter when they think I can't hear. At first, it hurt so much I stopped going out. But then one day, I realized something. They only laugh because they're afraid of being laughed at. They mock what they don't understand. His words hung heavy in the air. Maya felt her throat tighten. How do you stay so calm? I would have broken a long time ago. He smiled, but it wasn't a sad smile, it was peaceful. Because I learned that dignity is the only thing they can't take from you unless you hand it over. Maya looked at him quietly, absorbing every word. She realized then that this man, whom people judged so easily, had more self-respect than anyone she knew. He wasn't bitter. He was free. That conversation drifted to lighter things, books, movies, childhood stories. She told him about Noah's obsession with dinosaurs, and he laughed, promising to bring him a book he loved as a kid. Hours slipped by unnoticed. When she finally checked her phone, it was nearly evening. I should go, she said reluctantly. Noah's probably wondering where dinner is. Next time, bring him, Evan said with a smile. I make a mean chocolate milkshake, she grinned. You might regret that invitation. He talks more than I do. Good, he replied. Maybe he'll teach me a few things. As she stood to leave, she noticed a group of young people at another table whispering and glancing their way. Her old instinct kicked in embarrassment, the sting of judgment. But before she could react, Evan said quietly, ignore them. They don't matter. What matters is how we see each other. And she did. For the first time in her life, she didn't shrink under the weight of other people's eyes. She smiled, lifted her chin, and said, you're right, when she walked out into the evening air. The city lights shimmered in puddles on the street. She breathed deeply, realizing something had shifted inside her. The ache of humiliation had transformed into a strange, steady strength. Later that night, as she tucked Noah into bed, he asked, "Mom, are you happy today?" She paused, surprised by the question. "Why do you ask?" "Because you're smiling different," he said sleepily. She brushed his hair back and whispered, "Yeah, buddy, I think I am." In another part of the city, Evan sat alone on his small apartment balcony, watching the same moon that shone through her window. He wasn't used to people seeing past his size, but tonight, someone had, and for the first time in a long while, he felt like he wasn't invisible. Both of them drifted to sleep that night with a quiet peace to hearts, once broken in different ways, now stitched together by something simple, but rare, respect. The office that Monday morning buzzed with an uneasy energy, but it wasn't from the usual deadlines or email notifications. Maya walked through the glass doors, her coffee cup warming her hands, and noticed the awkward glances aimed her way. Whispers swirled around cubicles, but she didn't flinch. Whatever had been meant as humiliation had already been transformed in her mind. She carried herself with a quiet confidence, the kind that comes from surviving and learning that no one else's opinion could define her worth. Evan, arriving shortly after her, gave her a small nod and a grin. No words were needed. They both understood the unspoken acknowledgement that the night at the cafe had changed something fundamental. As they settled into their desks, the tension between them wasn't there. There was a lightness, a connection that had begun in shared understanding. Across the office, Tina and Lauren exchanged uneasy glances. Their laughter had disappeared, replaced with discomfort. The video they had captured on their phones intended as proof of Maya's embarrassment now felt like a testament to how their cruelty had backfired. People around them had already begun discussing the evening in hushed tones, not as a joke, but as a story about dignity, kindness, and unexpected courage. By mid-morning, the office manager, Ms. Harper, called Tina and Lauren into her office. Their faces were pale, their smiles gone. The conversation behind closed doors lasted nearly 20 minutes, and when they emerged, their posture had shifted. Humility replaced their usual arrogance. The whispers in the office had reached her ears. Ms. Harper had known exactly what had happened. There would be consequences, formal warnings, team reassignments, but more importantly, the office now understood that malicious actions could not overshadow genuine character. Maya returned to her desk, a sense of calm surrounding her. Evan leaned over her cubicle wall, lowering his voice. "You handled that incredibly well," he said. "I was impressed." Maya smiled faintly. "I had a good teacher," she replied, thinking of him. Someone who reminded me that not everyone sees the world through fear or judgment. Their brief conversation was interrupted by a group of coworkers approaching with coffee in hand, murmuring congratulations and admiration. People who had once overlooked Maya's quiet presence now saw the strength she carried, the grace she exhibited under pressure. They weren't just celebrating her. They were witnessing the triumph of integrity over cruelty. Later that week, Evan and Maya met outside the office for coffee, not at the cafe where the joke had begun, but a small, quiet place that allowed them privacy. The conversation flowed easily, laughter mingling with serious reflections. Evan shared stories from his childhood, revealing the moments when he had been bullied, overlooked, or underestimated. Maya listened intently, relating every word to her own experiences as a single mother navigating judgment and societal expectations. "What's remarkable," Maya said, stirring her coffee, "is how we keep choosing to show up, even when people expect us to shrink." Evan nodded, his eyes thoughtful. "Exactly. And choosing kindness isn't weakness, it's strength. It takes more courage to respond with grace than to retaliate with anger." For hours, they talked about everything: their dreams, their fears, their small victories and quiet heartbreaks. Maya realized she had never met someone who could hold a conversation with such honesty. Someone who could both acknowledge pain and celebrate life's small joys. Evan wasn't just a listener. He was a witness, someone who saw her without judgment, who valued her resilience as much as her humor. By the time they parted ways, the sun was setting, painting the city streets in gold and amber. They walked together for a few blocks, sharing stories about their childhood neighborhoods, their favorite books, and their guilty pleasures. At the corner where they parted, Evan hesitated before speaking. "Maya," he said softly, "I want you to know something." That night at the cafe, it wasn't about proving anything to them. It was about reminding both of us that dignity and compassion always have the final say. And You reminded me that hope isn't lost, no matter what people try to make you believe. Maya's eyes softened, and you reminded me that there are people who see beyond what the world tries to judge, people who choose to stay kind even when it's difficult. He smiled, a mixture of relief and admiration. Then I guess we both learned something. She laughed, a genuine, unguarded sound that mingled with the evening breeze. Yes, and maybe we can keep learning together. Evan reached out, lightly brushing a strand of hair from her face. I'd like that, he said simply, and in that moment, words weren't necessary. They both felt the weight of the past lifting, replaced by a quiet possibility that had nothing to do with revenge or pride, and everything to do with connection. The office would recover. Tina and Lauren would face their reprimands, but Maya and Evan's bond had formed independently of cruelty, proof that even in a world that sometimes celebrates malice, human kindness could create something lasting. They had turned humiliation into understanding, judgment into respect, and a cruel setup into the beginning of something unexpected yet profoundly real. As Maya walked home that evening, she felt a sense of completion she hadn't known in years. Her son greeted her with a hug, and she felt the warmth of family, love, and quiet triumph. Meanwhile, Evan returned to his apartment, gazing at the city skyline, realizing that the world hadn't changed but his place in it had. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel invisible. He felt seen, truly seen, by someone who understood the weight of surviving and the beauty of choosing hope over bitterness. They had survived the cruel setup, and in surviving, they had found each other. Weeks turned into months, and the bond between Maya and Evan deepened in ways neither of them had anticipated. Their meetings became a rhythm in their lives, not out of obligation, but because they genuinely wanted each other's company. Coffee. Dates evolved into walks in the park, baking afternoons with Noah, and quiet evenings sharing stories that they had never told anyone else. With every interaction, they peeled back the layers of judgment, fear, and loneliness that the world had tried to impose on them, revealing trust, understanding, and an unexpected joy. Noah adored Evan instantly. There was a natural warmth in the way Evan engaged with him, the patience he showed when Noah repeated questions or demanded attention. One Saturday afternoon, Maya watched them building a pillow fort in the living room, their laughter echoing through the apartment. It struck her how different life could feel when kindness replaced fear, when someone chose to show up not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Evan caught her gaze and smiled, and in that moment, it was as though they both recognized a quiet miracle. They had turned humiliation into family. At work, Maya found herself walking with a renewed confidence. People treated her differently now, not out of pity, but with respect. The office environment, once tense from the prank that had backfired, had shifted. Even Tina and Lauren avoided their previous snide comments, constrained by the knowledge that their actions had been observed, recorded, and ultimately condemned by their peers. Maya realized that while the world could be cruel, it could also be fair in ways she hadn't expected. Her dignity had remained intact, and it had drawn respect, not scorn. One evening, as winter approached and snow dusted the city streets, Evan invited Maya and Noah to a small neighborhood festival. They wandered through booths, sampling homemade treats and watching street performers. Evan held Maya's hand, steady and reassuring, as Noah darted ahead, calling out at every sight he found fascinating. It was in these ordinary moments, snowflakes caught on eyelashes, laughter that rolled like music, hands intertwined with trust, that Maya recognized the depth of what they were building together. A family, formed not from circumstance, but from choice. During a quiet walk back from the festival, under the glow of street lamps reflecting off the freshly fallen snow, Evan stopped and turned toward Maya. His eyes held a seriousness that made her pause. "Maya," he began, voice low but firm, "these past months, they've been the happiest I've had in years. You and Noah, you've brought life back into my world in ways I didn't think were possible. I need to ask you something." Maya's heart quickened, though she tried to mask her excitement with calm curiosity. "What is it?" Evan took a deep breath. "I want to be part of your lives in every way, not just as a friend, not just as someone who shows up. I want to be your family. Maya, will you let me? Will you let me stay with you, with Noah, as more than just a visitor in your world?" Tears pricked Maya's eyes, a mixture of surprise, relief, and overwhelming joy. She could feel the weight of the past, the betrayal, the ridicule, the years of loneliness finally lifting. "Yes," she whispered, voice trembling. "Yes, Evan, I want that too." Evan pulled her into a gentle embrace, holding her close as the cold winter wind swirled around them. It wasn't a grand gesture with lights and music. It was quiet, intimate, and profoundly real. In that moment, they had taken what was once an afternoon of humiliation and turned it into the foundation of a new beginning, one built on respect, understanding, and unwavering choice. Life after that was not perfect, no family's life ever is, but it was rich with authenticity. They celebrated small victories together. Noah's first solo performance at his school play, Maya receiving a promotion at work, Evan completing a personal project he had shelved for years. Each triumph was shared, celebrated, and cherished. Each challenge met with the knowledge that they were not facing it alone. Months later, as spring bloomed, as flowers painted the city parks in vibrant colors, Evan organized a small, intimate proposal. Not at a restaurant, not with a grand spectacle, but in the apartment living room where they had first cooked together, where Noah had first trusted him, and where laughter and tears had mingled in equal measure. Surrounded by soft candlelight, Evan knelt before Maya, holding a simple ring in his hands. "Maya," he said, voice steady with emotion, "you and Noah have changed my world in ways I never imagined. I want to be with you every day, in every moment, for all the days ahead. Will you marry me?" Maya's eyes filled with tears, and Noah bounced excitedly in the background, having been clued in on the secret. "Yes," Maya whispered, barely able to contain her joy. "Yes, absolutely." The wedding was a small affair, attended by family, close friends, and those who had witnessed the transformation from a cruel joke to a profound love story. Noah served as the proud ring bearer, his laughter mingling with the soft notes of the piano as Maya walked down the aisle. Evan met her gaze, his eyes reflecting the journey they had endured, the humiliation, the courage, the patience, and finally, the choice to embrace love over bitterness. Years later, looking back, Maya often thought about that rainy afternoon at the cafe. What had been intended as a moment of mockery had become a catalyst for connection, trust, and an enduring love that neither she nor Evan could have predicted. It was a reminder that the world could be cruel, but within the hearts of those who chose kindness, there was always hope, always the possibility of something beautiful emerging from something ugly. Together, Maya, Evan, and Noah created a home built not on perfection, but on resilience, compassion, and choice. They proved that laughter could heal, that love could transform, and that even in the aftermath of humiliation, life could offer a beginning far more beautiful than anyone had dared to imagine.